Frank, and you didn't mention that actually I was born in Ukraine, and I was born in the Crimea. And I was born in the town of Yalta, and I said that the rest of my life was repentance for Yalta, for the sins of Yalta of 45, when Stalin, Roosevelt, and Churchill divided Europe. And now maybe the rest of my life will be repentance for what the Russians are doing in Yalta, but not my fault. Frank, thank you so much, and thank you for all the work you're doing. I remember as a graduate student, I admired your work and actually wrote to you, and you wrote back, which hopefully all of us will follow the good example. I also admire Herman Birchner's work at the American Foreign Policy Council, where he and my other friends doing terrific work, and I encourage you to read Herman's, Elon Berman's, and Steve Blank's writings on these important issues. I do not want to scare anybody, and I do not want to sound like a Cassandra, but I think what we are witnessing today is the end of the post-Cold War arrangement and maybe the post-World War II arrangement. This was the arrangement that had a clear hierarchical international order, and was the underpinnings of which were American power projected around the world. It was a benign power projection. It was a system that provided a tremendous growth in international trade. America played a role which the British Empire played before 1914. And by challenging this arrangement, not only we're sending, if we let it stand, not only we send a signal that a powerful nuclear neighbor can grab and trample territory of its weaker neighbor, not only we acquiesce to the destruction of the guarantees that were given to a sovereign country that gave up its nuclear weapons, and now its territory cannot be protected. In case of Russia, in case of the Budapest Memorandum of '94, but we also will allow emergence of a world order that will resemble the world order between the two world wars and before World War I, when Britain did not assert its power around the world. What does that mean? It means, number one, that a competition between Russia, China, the US, in the future possibly nuclear-armed Iran, in the future possibly India, and beyond the horizon possibly Brazil. They said Brazil is like a horizon. The closer you get to it, the further away it floats. But it is an emergence of a different world order in which there's a number of players, and in which security guarantees such as the ones that were given to Ukraine do not matter. What matters is might, and the might is right. Do we want to live in this world? No, we don't. The other implications are economic. In the world like that, where conflicts occur with more ferocity more often, insurance premiums go up, investment goes down, and eventually it leads to mercantilist and protectionist trade policies, as the ones that led to the Great Depression of '29 and into the 1930s. This is something that I believe, from personal contact, day to day, with the mid and upper levels of our power, this is something a lot of these folks just don't understand, because they don't have the background, they don't have the schooling, they're distracted by the day-to-day emergencies, and you do not have people who can stand back and think it through to the logical conclusion. And when they do, I actually believe that Europeans have a better grasp of history, including, of course, European history. When they do think it through, they're so scared, they're frozen into appeasement of Russia. What started to come out a couple of days after the invasion of Crimea is that the Europeans do not want to rock the boat. It's the same, it's a deja vu all over again. It is the same reaction we had to the 2008 invasion of Georgia. And at that point, I wrote, and it's published in several places by the War College, by the Heritage Foundation, and in op-ed pieces, that the invasion of Georgia was not just about Georgia, it was about Ukraine, it was about prevention of countries in Russia's neighborhood from joining NATO, and then Putin added another proviso, not joining the EU as Ukraine wanted. So Frank Fukuyama sold a lot of copy of The End of History, but even then, both my wife and I laughed and said, the history does not end. I'm wondering if history is repeating itself with one important distinction. At this point, we are talking about a more chaotic and more dangerous international environment with nuclear weapons, whereas until World War II, nuclear weapons did not play such a role. So what we have today is an open-ended question where Putin will stop. I do not see how this administration, plus our European allies, such as they are, can walk this baby back, put it in the box, and return to status quo ante. I do not want to call it status quo antebellum before the war. The question is, can Putin be stopped from grabbing, through internal subversion, the 8 regions that Herman was talking about? But from talking to Ukrainian business people and Ukrainian officials, they contemplate 3 scenarios. 1, just the Russian-speaking areas. 2, all the Ukraine to the Dnieper River, which is a half of Ukraine, where Russian is more spoken. And the 3rd scenario, going beyond the Dnieper in the south, grabbing the port cities of Mykolaiv and Odessa and linking up with the Transnistria exclave. This is the moment of truth. This is the moment of truth for us, for the Europeans, for the Ukrainians, and for the Russians. This is the greatest crisis since the end of the end of the Cold War, bigger than the Yugoslav war, because Yugoslavia just imploded and collapsed on itself. It did not have nukes. There was no nuclear side in the Yugoslav conflict. Ladies and gentlemen, we should pray that we come out of this happily in one piece. God bless.